is BreakmanX, and welcome to the game show on March 19th, 2025. How's it going, Jack?
It's going great. It's March Madness. It's officially here, man. Been watching basketball already for a while.
Nice. I am very upset with you, though. You've allowed it to snow again, and I don't know if I can forgive that, Mr. Jack Frost, but I'll see what I can do. And we are without Maul tonight. He's driven across country, but we do have Logan. How are you doing, sir?
Doing fantastic. Can't wait to be a part of the game show tonight. This is going to be great.
It is going to be a lot of fun tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun. And Darria, how are you?
Pretty good. I feel like I always announce the drink that I have. I've got a little tropical punch with me for tonight's show. So
where's the Darria drink punch card? But I want to know.
You have to
I feel
start
like I've announced coffee over the past couple times, but this one's different.
All right. And before we get into our special guest tonight, the game show is a celebration of video games and our collective interests mixed with a healthy dose of humor while bringing in our favorite people in the game and movie industries on as guests. And tonight, we've got a fabulous guest. Shmup Junkie has made some absolutely amazing, super high quality videos celebrating one of my favorite genres, old school shoot 'em ups. If you want to know what the best shmups are across all the systems, how to be good at shmups, the hardest ones, whatever, Shmup Junkie's YouTube channel will provide you with some high-quality education. Even beyond shmups, the channel covers many of the great old-school genres of action games, and in particular, check out the extraordinary Gaming in the 80s and 90s video. It's a pretty cool one. And just please visit one of my favorite channels, Shmup Junkie. Welcome to the show.
Hi, glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, glad that you're here. So let's jump right in. And what was the genesis or the beginning of your channel?
Gosh. Okay. So when I started my channel, it wasn't really intended to be a channel. I didn't know what it would be. I just decided that I wanted to make some really good reviews of the PC Engine Mini or the TurboGrafx 16 Mini. That's how my channel started.
Oh.
The system came out. I was very excited about it, and it was kind of not getting its due. I didn't think it was getting reviewed in the way that it should, or that people weren't really covering the games in the way I would have liked to cover them. So because I was so intimate with the system and the games, I just wanted to put together a really thorough breakdown of not just the console and its details, but the actual games, really focus on the games that are on there because it has so many shmups on there, so many shooting games. I don't remember how many it was, but I don't know if it was 25% of them or the 40%, a huge portion of them are all shooting games on the PC Engine Mini. And I wanted to, so it's almost like a gateway drug system. When you get a TG16 Mini and you just have all these really, really good shmups that were on the system to play.
Sure.
So I wanted to make a really cool PC Engine Mini video, and I made one and it did really well and I enjoyed it. So then I made a follow-up and I made another one. So all my first few videos were all related to the PC Engine Mini, just reviewing different aspects of it, different games, things like that. And then it kind of just took off from there. I didn't really have any expectations, honestly.
Oh, cool. Well, that's interesting. I wasn't aware that's how it started, and I'm glad that you're out there covering PC Engine in general because it definitely needs as much love as it can get. So, Jack, why don't you kick off with your first question of the evening?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being here, Shmup Junkie. We really appreciate it. I've been watching some of your videos since past weekend and beyond that as well. I really love your video about the music of all the shmups, or at least the greatest music in the shmups. It's a really cool look at, just the different platforms that they're on, as well as just, the transition from chip tunes to CD quality music, which is really awesome. I'm a huge audiophile, so it really struck a chord with me. But anyway, you've got some other amazing videos all about shmups and the best shmups. If you were to tell somebody right now, where, if somebody's interested in shmups or shoot 'em ups, where's the best entry place right now? If I wanted to just get into it now and I was brand new to the genre, where would I start?
And when you say entry place, do you mean like a particular console or like a very specific game or anything that's really good for it?
I would just say if I just want to know what the genre is about, I want to get a basic entry into it, and let's say I've got a Mega Drive or a Sega Genesis, where would I want to get started?
Gotcha. So if you have a Mega Drive or Sega Genesis, then there's very specific games you look at. it's been a few years, but I made a video called Best Shmups for Beginners that did really well a while back. And I did that where I focus, okay, on the PC Engine, here's 2 or 3 games that I would recommend first. Here on the Mega Drive, here are some games I would recommend first. Because each system has their entry level, basic kind of shmups that kind of take it easy on you, and they're just good for beginners. So if I was going to go with the Mega Drive, if I recall right, one of the games that I had mentioned on that system was called Battle Mania 2. And that's if you've heard of the game, it's a really, really good game. It's unusual in terms of shmup, so it's not the kind of game you would pick up to learn basic shmup mechanics. But the thing about having an entry-level shmup is finding a game that impresses you. It's finding one that you just really, really enjoy playing. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to have all the mechanics down. But it's a game that just is so involving because it's so much fun to play. The music is great. The graphics are great. And it's relatively easy to get into. So it's one of those games that just will kind of keep you coming back. So that's a good beginner shmup on the Sega Genesis. There's a couple other ones I mentioned too. When I started the video, I remember I started with the PC Engine because I recommended a couple games there. Star Peroger was one of them on the PC Engine because that's a really quite easy game, but it's also a lot of fun and has great music. So again, it's not just finding a game that's easy because easy could be boring. And then that's what I really recommend for people is find a game that you're attracted to. Find one that isn't just, oh, it's easy, so I'm just going to play that first. It's, oh, that game looks really cool because, that's why we play games. Oh, that looks great, or that sounds great, or this looks like something I would want to play. And then, decide if it's something you want or not. So every system has good entry-level shmups. I'm trying to remember what the other one was on the Mega Drive that I picked, but it's been a while.
I love those choices while you're thinking. The Battle Mania 2 I played, I'm pretty sure thanks to your video, if I remember right, because I hadn't played that one before. So appreciate your selections.
Yeah. Steel Empire, before I forget, that was the other one I mentioned on the Mega Drive. That's another one. And it's not an amazing game, but it's just really kind of unique and cool. And again, it's not all that difficult. It's one you can just play and have a good time with, get as far as you can. And it's also a good entry point. On the retro side, there's a lot of modern shmups that are actually really, really good entry points on the Switch that I'd normally recommend to people to play. Because they have progression, they have save states, they have different modes. You can kind of work your way into them. Whereas with the older games, they're not built that way.
What are some of those you would recommend?
On modern systems, for example, on the Switch, one of them is called Natsuki Chronicles.
Okay.
It's made by Cute, and that's a really, really good side-scrolling shooting game because of its progression system. Because you can play it on easy mode, and it's not that easy. But it lets you, but it takes it stage by stage. So you kind of upgrade your ship, you play a stage, and you learn how to play it. And the more you play it, the better you get. It kind of doles out more credits, more continues, and you just keep trying until you become comfortable with it, and you can kind of play around. So it's a good entry point from that stance. Any beginner can just enjoy that game. And again, it has phenomenal music. It's easy to get into. The mechanics in the game are really solid. So that's one of the more modern games. You can't play that one on the Switch though. Natsuki Chronicles is either on Steam or they actually released it for the Xbox.
Cool.
It wasn't not the original Xbox, but the Xbox 360 back when it was a thing.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thank you for the Rex, for sure. And before we head on to Logan, I do just want to remind everybody, if you want to write in any questions, any comments to the show tonight, you can do that either below the video you're watching, or you can head to our Discord. If you go to BreakmanX.com, click the Discord button and hop in. Any of those places, the messages all go to the same place, and the lovely Logan will catch us up on what's going on. I just did an alliteration and just spicy. Logan, do you want to catch us up on the chat room before we head into your question?
Yeah, so I'm going to start here with Social Gamer. Some of the best content on the platform, here to support Shmup Junkie. Amazing high quality content. Awesome. Fenris, regular viewer. Here's a question for Junkie. How many PC Engine / Turbo Graphics consoles you got?
Oh gosh, how many? I used to have a lot more because I've pared my collection down over the last few months because I just had so much. So right now I just have a few. I have my Duo that I use all the time. I have a Core Graphics that I use, and I have a Super Graphics. And I have my original TurboGrafx 16 CD console. But before then, before I sold off a lot of it, I must have had over a dozen. I had a PC Engine LT. I had, a white PC Engine, like the briefcase system, with the CD. I had one of those. I had 2 different duos, not just one. One was RGB modded, one was regular. I still have my Turbo Express because that one is that's straight nostalgia. So I'm never going to get rid of that one. But yeah, I used to have like over a dozen of them, but now it's just a few.
That's awesome.
Very cool.
Okay, so another from Social Gamer. When Shmup Junkie uploaded any content, I made it a story time for me, got comfy, grabbed snacks, and enjoyed. Nice.
Me too.
And then Fenris, yes, the Japan-only sequel to Troubleshooter. And then... Oh, and I'm sorry, I don't quite know how to pronounce that first one. Adi Sensei's private night lesson. Hi, Shmup Junkie. Is this podcast pre-recorded? No, this is all live. So you can catch the videos on the channel afterward. We do have some of our older streams if you want to, but every Wednesday at 9 we are live. And then Marina, any updates on the documentary? So cool.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, that's a whole separate thing entirely. I don't know if you want to get into documentary now, or if you want to save it for later, or whenever you guys want to get.
We can hop into it. I think when we get to that section, it's a really good question. I'm super excited about the Toa Plan documentary. That's actually one of Logan's questions. So
yeah.
I'd be happy to update you guys when we get to that on the show for sure.
That's exciting.
Awesome.
Very
awesome.
Cool.
Okay.
Should we go ahead and hop into your question, Logan, or you got a few more?
There's a lot coming in. Okay.
We can always split it up and do the next round. That's great, by the way. I'm
sorry, guys. I posted on my couple different social media places.
No, thank you. This is great. We absolutely love the interactivity. Don't worry about it at all. We're excited to get any commentary in. So anybody out there, if you're a Shmup Junkie fan, I know there's a lot of you. Go ahead and write in. We would love to get your comment on air.
Yeah. Let's move on to the next round of questions, and I'll sort through these in between, and we'll come back.
Sounds good. Logan will be watching.
For my question, what really hooks you when you're playing a game? Like, what makes a good game for you?
More than anything, especially what brings me back, would be the rhythm and flow of a game, in addition to really good music. So when I say rhythm and flow, that's one reason I enjoy shooting games so much, is that's really what they're all about. It's a very visceral experience. When a lot of shmups are, and that's why I like them, and then music plays a big part of that. But rhythm and flow is any game that I can kind of get into a zone or a flow state where I'm just so focused on the game and everything else just kind of disappears. And that it makes a game more fun to play. And it's not only just shmups. A lot of the old platformers and NES games are like that. That's why the original Ninja Gaiden is one of my favorite games of all time, is because the game just has a certain rhythm to it. Once you've played it enough times, you can just blast through the game in a certain amount of time, and everything is in a flow. And when you play it perfectly, it just feels just right. With the music and everything else, everything just goes. And it's the same thing with a lot of shmups and certain other games where everything in the game is just so perfectly, they were so nitpicky about every little bit of enemy placement, every this, every that. So, and they really tested their game. So if you're really, really good at it, like any good arcade game, you can really just blow through it, once you become good at it and you get into this kind of flow of playing it over and over again. It becomes a lot of fun. And good platformers, shmups are all like that. So that's usually what hooks me, is when I can just get into that mode playing a game after a while.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No,
You're in good
great.
company. I think we all have pretty similar tastes in games, which Jack and I were talking about that before the show. So that's pretty cool. Darria, your turn.
So you utilize a lot of great editing techniques in your videos. Do you have a background in editing or video? And what are you trying to deliver through your editing style?
Gosh. Interestingly enough, I have no background in editing whatsoever. And you can probably tell that because if you look at my old original videos, they're really, really bare bones. They're basic as far as like the editing style. It was just me and my passion for the games and having a good time and playing around, and people responded to that. But I really wanted to become good at video editing because I enjoy it. And because I've always been techie like all of us are, and I'm good on computers, and I come from an IT background. So I can learn programs very quickly. So I made it a point that every time I worked on a new video, I would learn something new. I would try a new technique or something this or something that, to where, you know, after a year, after a couple of years, there was just a progression, you know, and I became better and better at it. But there's absolutely no professional training, no background. And my goal is just to tell good stories and really hype people up. You can probably tell my style is unique. You know, my intros are kind of like sizzle reels almost.
Mm-hmm. They're great.
They're awesome. Yeah.
Because that's like one of the most fun parts of making the video, is just doing comedy, being funny, like having fun bits, and then doing the really, really cool intro that gets people hooked. And it was really just doing it over and over again and trying to learn something new every now and then. My life in gaming was an inspiration for me on that, because once I started watching YouTube, you know, I watched your videos like, wow, that's some great production value. You know, I'd love to learn how to do this or that, and, you know, put something together. It's a little more professional for any reason in the future. So I could maybe make my own, you know, documentaries or films or videos someday if I become good enough. And that's really where it came from.
That's awesome. And I think,
really cool.
you've definitely developed a language, like a style. Like a Shmup Junkie video, it's a Shmup Junkie video. And I know I'm going to have both a good time, get hyped, and be excited to play games, but also learn a lot. So I love that combination.
Yeah, people used to always tell me that in the comments. They were like, you know, they almost like don't look forward to the video, and then they do because they're going to spend money. Because they're like whatever game I'm showing, I make it look so exciting and so fun and so interesting. They're like, now they want to buy it. You know, now they want to buy it. So like maybe I should do advertising or something.
There you go. Need some kickbacks for sure. So watching your videos, I think your favorite console is the for Shmups at least is the PC Engine. If you can't have your top system, what would be your number two?
My number two, simply because of nostalgia and that time period. Again, I love the Mega Drive too. I love a ton of the shooting games on that system, even though I didn't own one. One of my best friends growing up did, you know, so I spent a ton of time there just renting games and playing games and beating a lot of those shooting games on the for us it was the Genesis. And again, it's not necessarily what's the best. You know, I'm not comparing it. Oh, is it better than Saturn or is it better than PS1? It's more just personal preference. I love that 16-bit era, and there's so many great games I love on that system that if I couldn't have one, I'd have to take the other.
Nice choice. Very good choice.
Very cool.
I'm with you on that. And Jack.
Yeah. So I know I've got a lot of friends that see shmups as kind of like incomprehensible messes. And sometimes they look at me playing one and they're like, oh my gosh, that seems just incredibly overwhelmingly difficult. And they see just how much action is going on screen. So like, do you have any advice for people that are trying to overcome that? And like, they want to play shmups, but they just don't know how to really get into it other than, you know, picking the right game for you?
I would say in the beginning, you made a really good point, which is it's not really a preconceived notion that the games are like that. A lot of the games really are like that. A lot of the games are absolutely crazy. You know, you look at a lot of the later cave games and Bullet Hell, and it's overwhelming. And there's a reason for that. I mean, they were arcade games. They were meant to eat your quarters. And it was a time period where shooting games had become more of a hardcore occupation. You know, so they were catering to a crowd.
Yeah.
And those games are phenomenal if, you know, you put the time into them. But for a beginner, they're overwhelming. So like you said, I recommend people play a game that does not look overwhelming to them. You know, find ones that are good entry level, because not all games are like that. Especially games that are console based. You know, anytime you try to play a shooting game or any game, whether it be platform or, you know, try playing the original arcade Contra and see how far you get. You know, it's
tough.
It's an arcade game. It's designed to eat your quarters. You have to become really good. But if you play games and you focus on the ones that are console based, that were specifically designed for consoles, they tend to be more entry level. They tend to be easier. They are more accessible versus arcade conversions. And that's why the TG60 and the PC Engine had a lot of those. They had a lot of fantastic entry level games, and so did the Genesis. So pick games that look good to you. But at the same time, work your way up to it. So once you get a comfort zone with certain games and you've got a few, you know, finishes behind your belt, then you feel a little more comfortable getting into it more. You know, for people who are absolutely into Bullet Hell and they want to learn Bullet Hell and they want to become good at it, it's not as overwhelming as it seems. You have to give it a chance. And the honestly best entry point for a lot of people have been a certain series of Toho games. which some people have heard of Toho, some have not. But there's certain ones in the series, specifically like 6, 7, 8, right around there. They have fantastic easy modes, really fantastic easy modes. They're not overwhelming, and some of the best players I know that are on a level beyond me, that are incredible players, started and learned with Toho, because they're learning the bullet hell mechanics from those games is fantastic, and the bullets move really slowly. They have all these complex patterns, and I've seen people who were completely new to shmups, that were uncomfortable with them, that were afraid of them, give the easy modes on some of those games a chance, and like they actually, after some practice, were able to finish them, and they felt fantastic about it, and they gave them a lot of confidence.
Oh, that's awesome.
So there's some good entry points for bullet hell too, if they look at that, and they're free.
Oh, even better.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
One of the, just kind of an aside, one of the things I liked about your videos is talking about like the PC Engine version of Gradius 2, for example, and how that's your favorite version. I appreciate you saying that, because it's nice to know that, the arcade version, which is so much more difficult, isn't necessarily the pinnacle, and that the most fun one could be one of the console ones. So I think that's a very helpful thing to know going through your videos, for sure.
And not only that, but it also, they have an extra stage in that version versus the arcade, and that, again, that's why a lot of the console versions of certain games are great entry points for people, because it's just slightly toned down, because it's not meant to be an arcade game. You've already paid for it. There's no reason for them to bust your balls. It's supposed to be fun. And if you want the harder experience, you can play it on the harder modes, and it'll be a lot closer to the arcade. Yeah, but you kind of get it both ways.
And the music is so phenomenal too.
Yeah.
All right, Logan, do you want to catch us up on the chat? Has anything come through?
Yeah, oh, plenty. Okay, so
that's great. Keep it coming.
Eddie Sensei says, "Hey, Shmup Junkie, is YS4 on PC Engine a full run and gun, or is the range attack source base?"
Which game? I'm sorry, I didn't miss the something for.
YS4.
Ease 4.
Ease 4. Okay, sorry.
Ease.
Oh, okay, Ease 4. Okay, Ease 4. Is it a what? Is it a run and gun or what?
Is it a full run and gun, or is the range attack source based?
Ease 4 plays almost exactly like Ease 1 and 2, where you're actually running into enemies and you continue. You're not swinging a sword and jumping around. I mean, it still has its magic, and it has some additional mechanics that the original didn't have. But it's still, the gameplay is very much based in that original. And I know a lot of people give that a hard time, but honestly, I like it. It's actually has its benefits. One thing that's good about it is it really keeps the game moving fast. You never stop. You're always moving. Like, you can really blow through the game a lot faster than you're constantly stopping. You're constantly swinging your sword. There's something to be said about the pacing of those games because of that decision, and how the fighting is, that completely changes the gameplay. It's actually has its benefits.
That's the first CD-based PC Engine game I ever played on real hardware, because my Duo came with it inside the CD-ROM drive.
That's cool.
Shipped it, yeah.
Oh wow!
So
there's a translation for that now too. There's an English translation for Ease 4 that wasn't for a long time.
Oh, cool.
That was worked on, and I couldn't wait when I finally played that, because when I originally played it as a kid, I had to play in Japanese. I refused to not play it. I'm like, I'm going to play it anyway. I don't care if I can't understand it.
Right.
But when it finally came out, I got to enjoy it in English for the first time, like, decade later.
I'll have to play that.
Awesome. Okay, so from Fenris, question number 2 for the junkie: what is the most boring shooter you've played?
Boring? Oh my gosh. There's some boring ones. I think Trevor McFur is pretty boring. That one doesn't move, and I think a big part of that too is, and I think a big part of that is because it's missing music. That definitely doesn't help.
Ooh.
Because the music is an important part of a shmup. I mean, there's some other ones that are a little bit slow and boring too. That's not the only one, but that's like the first one that comes to mind. There are definitely worse games than it, but it's something about it kind of doesn't keep my interest.
One little side question off that. So are you as big a believer as I am, in that the first level music in any good shmup can make or break the game?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, just shmups having good music in general, like the game can be absolutely amazing and have incredible mechanics and the most fun thing to play in the world. But if they brick the music and it's just not good, it just ruins it. Like I can still really enjoy the game, but I have to play something else. Like it takes away from it. Whereas there are very, very average shmups out there that are okay. They're not great, but the music is so phenomenal that it literally just elevates the game by like one more level because of that. So, and that's not just true of shmups, but especially of shmups because of the type of games they are and how visceral they are. It really makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess one more kind of spin-off question. Have you ever like encountered a shmup where I guess both ways where the music is kind of in rhythm with the level, or the music has been like out of rhythm of the level and created a contrast?
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of shmups that are very much in rhythm with the game and rhythm of the level. A really good example of that, and most people probably even heard of it, is, except unless you're big into shmup, is like Chorensha back from the Sharp 68000. That game integrates the music with the gameplay extremely well. But again, there's tons of them are like that. Soldier Blade does a phenomenal job of integrating its music with the gameplay. Lords of Thunder, fantastic. I know I can name plenty of shmups where the music isn't great, but I'm not sure of ones where it's like out of rhythm with the game or it kind of breaks it. Cool. Or I'm sure there is. I can't think of one off the top of my head.
All right. I'm going to move on now. Let's see a few more questions here. Six Slayer says, just got a new subscriber here for the Shmup Junkie. Awesome. We appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
And then they've got a question for Shmup Junkie. Any thoughts on the Devil Blade reboot?
Oh gosh, I so wish I could give you thoughts on the Devil Blade reboot. And the reason I can't is because I've been so busy, so crazy working on the Toa Plan documentary that I haven't gotten to play most of the new shmups that have come out like in the last year and a half. I have a backlog like a mile long, that I would have made videos on. Like I see it, it looks great, and I know a lot of people who really enjoy it, and it's just sitting there like in my Steam, it's waiting to be played. And now that I'm making videos again, I'm going to start getting back to that, but unfortunately I can't because I haven't gotten a chance to play it yet.
I feel the backlog for sure.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, there's so many posts. I'm going to just like skim and get to a couple other questions here. Okay, Fenris made a funny comment. Shmup Junkie not only playing Shmup's, hearsay. That's pretty good. Let's see. Question number 3 for the Junkie from Fenris. How hyped are you for Yuzo Kushiro shooter Eartheon?
Eartheon, yeah. Super hyped. I think just visually that game looks incredible.
Yes.
And obviously the music is going to be good for obvious reasons. And so far, at least the early footage that I've seen looks legit. It's really hard to tell until you play a game, but the early footage looks legit. The graphics are there. The music is there. It's going to be impressive. So that's one of like a top 3, top 5 of upcoming I think it's incredible that there's so many Mega Drive shmups coming out soon. They're like that. Like ZPF is another one that's coming for the Mega Drive that also looks incredible. But there's plenty. Yeah.
I'm excited to get those cartridges. It's just fun to get like new cartridges. That was such a fun thing. Both Eartheon and ZPF I'll have whenever they come out.
That's really cool that people are still doing that.
Yes. I get hyped.
Okay, I think last question for now, and then I'm going to move on. We're going to start another round of our questions from Storm Eagle. What's going on, guys? I see Shmup Junkie likes the Sega Genesis, my dude. So, Junkie, if someone was about to try out a Shmup for the first time, what game would you recommend? We've kind of talked about this earlier, but
on the Genesis, on the Mega Drive.
Yeah, that would be a good one to recommend. Talk about for that question, I think.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah. Well, I already mentioned. I said since I already mentioned Battle Mania 2, and I already mentioned Steel Empire because those are good Mega Drive games. For as far as entry level goes, it's not an amazing game, but there's another one that's a really good entry level on the Mega Drive called Arrow Flash, and it's graphically interesting. It's a good game, but it's not overly difficult. So if you just want to dip your toes into it, you can have a really good time with it. But I think in terms of really good games, like I said before, I think your first game should be a really good game. It doesn't have to be overly easy, so it's easy to recommend a game like Musha, for example, because on the regular mode, not on the hard mode, it's pretty reasonable. It's not an overly difficult game. You can get, through the first few levels on it and have a really good time with it, and then just kind of work your way up from there on that game too. So, I'm sorry, I didn't even mention this. Thunder Force 3. If you're looking for a good entry level, easy game, Thunder Force 3 is like a given. Thunder Force 4 is incredible, but no, that's a hard game. Thunder Force 3 is great entry level game. Fantastic one.
Awesome.
Nice.
All right. So we'll move on to my question. What's your favorite new tool for playing games? And it could be like an accessory, like a controller, or maybe a scaler or switch, or like some kind of software for, like dumping a game or something, if that's something you're into, like anything.
Gosh, I think the tool that I considered a tool, without being a cop-out, would be like my Mister. Because if you're comfortable using a Mister, it's phenomenal for just about all the older consoles and games. It makes it easy to play all that stuff. So I mean, I have I had an OSSC and then I switched over to a RetroTink when that came out. Was easier to use. And I think my most used tool, honestly, is my adapter that I use my Saturn controller on. Everything else, I use my Saturn controller when I play PC games. I use my Saturn controller when I play like just about all these different consoles. So I have all these little converters that let me use my Saturn controller because I just like the D-pad so much. But as far as like a tool, if you're thinking of like hardware, I think I use the Mister.
Nice.
Do you mind giving out the name of the converter you've got for your Saturn controller?
Oh, there's different ones. You know what? I don't know off the top of my head because they're all different.
Okay.
I have like a USB to Saturn connector that I plug into my PC. But then if I want to play it on like some of my other consoles, like I have a converter that converts it to like a PlayStation, or I can use it on my Switch. I can use it on like all these different consoles with like minimum lag. So I have to pull the right adapter depending on which console I want to use it for.
Gotcha. Well, I guess then the one you use, the USB one.
I know that Brook, specifically Brook, Brooke, makes a lot of adapters, and I use Brook adapters for a lot of my different converters to use that Saturn controller on different systems. The one with my USB, I have to get off camera. I can look at it because it's laying right there. If I'm going to grab it, I can tell you exactly what it is. Let me see what it is.
Live on air. The Saturn controller is my favorite controller of all time, too.
It's pretty great.
I love that controller. I'd use it for everything.
The Saturn I had broke, and I was like, I still got the controller.
I have two of them. I have a backup.
Nice.
Because this one is not really common, and I found it. It's what is it called? It's a Saturn to USB RAFnet, RAPHnet. That's what it is. RAPHnet, RAFnet Technologies, RNT, and they make a Saturn to USB. I can even show it on camera here. It's this really basic looking white adapter, and it's a Saturn end on one side and USB on the other, and I just plug it into my PC and it works great.
That's cool.
awesome. This is not me Googling that right now.
If I ever get to try a Saturn controller, I might have to consider that.
The game show, bringing people and controllers together. All right, Darria, I think you're up.
All right. So, what is the game that you play when you just have a few minutes and you need something to relax, like your quick play game?
Oh, okay. Good question. Few minutes is the key word here, because most shmups even are, let's say an arcade shmup is usually maybe like 20 minutes to blast through. So if I have like 20 minutes or 30 minutes to play, there's a lot of games I would pick up. But when I only have a few minutes, that's when the caravan modes come out. Because the caravan modes on Soldier Blade specifically, but any one of those PC Engine shmups, because they're 2-minute modes. They're 2-minute modes and 5-minute modes, where it's just a score attack. So I just jump into it, and it lasts only 2 minutes or 5 minutes, and just see how high of a score I can get. The problem with those modes is that they're so damn addicting that few minutes is going to turn into a half hour. Yeah, because you just like, I ain't doing it. You just keep playing it over and over again. It's like you just want to keep doing it. It's like you get competitive with it. It's like, I almost had to do it again. Yep. And all of a sudden, like a half an hour has passed by. But if I only had a few minutes, like that's the easy grab.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Very good. Awesome. All right, so this is one of my favorite to ask. Okay, so you've got all of the time cleared in your schedule. What game would you most like to erase your memory and experience again for the first time?
Gosh, there's so many games like that. Well, in this case, it probably wouldn't be a shmup, simply because if I go back far enough, like nostalgia-wise, back to, when we were in elementary school and what was coming out when I was in elementary school, and that was the NES. Oh, so, yeah. The NES came out just, right at the perfect age. I don't remember if I was in 3rd grade or 4th grade or something like that. so for me and my friends playing like the original Zelda, for example, the first time, I mean, now, I mean, it's like, I'm not going to play the original Zelda again, like, even though it's a great game. But thinking back to like what it felt like at the time, like to play that kind of a game when you were 10 years old, it didn't exist before. So, and we were so enamored by it, like just that original Zelda. We were so enamored by it. I remember we wanted to make our own game. Like we started drawing out our own diagrams. Like we started like, what if we made our own levels? Like we started making our own caves and making our own overworlds, and like that's how exciting it was at the time. Like as kids, you just wanted to keep playing it and figure it out and make your own games. It was very inspiring in that way because it was a new way of seeing games that didn't really exist for the most part.
Yeah.
So, there's tons of shmups, obviously. I mean, I'd love to play the original R-Type again for the first time because in the arcade, because that was just an incredible experience. But just going far back enough, like, you could say that about a lot of games. You could say that about Ocarina, first time we played that Zelda, it was kind of transformative because we'd never really played anything like it before. But for me, I have to go further back. I have to go back to like the original Zelda or something to, like, if I could just erase my memory, and not now, because now it wouldn't be the same experience. I'd have to be 10 again.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's kind of what I mean, is like experience it exactly as you experienced it before.
But back then, it's like, the games are that or Ninja Gaiden. It would have to be one of those two.
Back then, those games just like completely took over your life, because like even when you weren't playing it, you were talking about it like at school, and like Zelda, you were wondering. To me, it was like this. It was this legend, and you were wondering about all the lore, and it was so simple, but you expanded upon it in your mind.
You couldn't wait to get back to it until you finished it, like, because especially when you haven't finished the game, to get further and further until you get through it, like, that experience was like nothing else.
Yeah. For sure.
Yep.
All right, Jack.
Yeah. All right. Let's shake things up a little bit.
Oh, no.
Shmup Junkie, are you ready for some word association?
Sure.
All right. So I'm going to give you a list of words, and I just want you to give me the first thing that pops into your head, okay?
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Parodius.
Octopus.
Option.
Options, Gradius.
Shield.
Shield, Force Pod.
Right. R-Type.
Dopkeratops.
Cave.
Blissful Death.
Shark.
Shark. Sami Sami Sami.
Zuntata.
Suntata. Psychedelic Space Fish.
Yeah.
Mega Drive.
Mega Drive. That raunchy FM sound.
Nemesis.
Nemesis. MSX.
Treasure.
Treasure. Gunstar.
All right. Raystorm.
Tidal Lasers.
And last one, Solvaloo.
Salvo what?
The,
I think I know what you're talking about. It's like that old like 3D base, like based on Xevious, kind of
well,
like.
yeah, but I was going for the ship from Xevious, yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha. I was like, I thought you were talking about the game or the ship or whatever. Yeah, Xevious was the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah, because they did have that 3D Xevious that was like way in the late 90s.
That's it. Because when I think of Xevious, I don't think like when you said Salvo, I was like, what?
Yeah. That's all awesome. That's great.
That was fun. That was a good idea, Jack. I like that. It was fun to hear the response. All right, Logan. Are there a bunch more chat for you to dive into?
There's not a lot of new ones, but I can go back to some old ones here. From Eddie Sensei, I tried Ys Otha Phlegana and the Ys 9 demo. The stream gave me an urge to play PC Engine Ys games. I bought Ys Topic here since I heard from Boghog that old Ys are not a good straightforward phasing. Like Schmups. Okay.
I think all the Ys are pretty worth playing. I mean, they're not all amazing, perfect, but I think they're all worth playing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think back with the original games, it was all about the music. It was just so mind blowing at the time when the CD just came out that the original Ys 1 and 2 is good. It's not great, but the music made the game.
So good
at the time.
I drive around listening to that soundtrack still.
That in these 3 years, like incredible.
So good.
Okay.
Any more, Logan?
Maximus Prime says, my first shmup was Asteroids Deluxe. I love Asteroids. Let's see. Social Gamer says, Shmups backlog will be our benefit. Fenris says, Junkie can't live without his Saturn pad, living up to his name.
Yeah.
That's true.
Nice. And I should mention, you guys, again, you can go to breakmanx.com, click the Discord link there and write in, or just write in a message below the video here. And of course, the obligatory, we would love if you liked and subscribed this video if you like what you're seeing.
Last couple messages here. We got a hi from Lori Dink. Hi.
Hi, Lori.
It's good to see you here.
Thanks for joining.
And then another from Addy Sensei. I kept bringing up RPGs on Shmup Junkie. I hope he isn't mad about what I ask.
I play everything. I said I don't just play shmups. I play tons of just about everything. So I don't mind.
Awesome.
Very cool.
All right. So for my question, describe a level or experience from a game that sticks in your head to the point where when you think good design, it immediately comes to you.
I think really incredible design. The first stage, the entire game mostly, but especially stage 2 of Strider Arcade.
Oh, yeah.
Stage 2 of Strider Arcade is amazing. Just the creativity of the level and how much, not just the visuals of the stage change, but the gameplay itself changes like throughout the level and what you're doing. And it's not an overly difficult stage, but I just remember that level blowing me away. And it still does. That's one of my favorite arcade games. I love the original Strider, and that stage always stood out for me.
Yeah, that's
Awesome.
pretty awesome.
So good. All right, Darria, your turn.
How did you initially discover your passion for video games?
Oh gosh. I think I discovered my passion for video games with what we just talked about earlier, which was the release of the NES. I mean, I remember having an Atari. I had a 2600, even though I was really young. And I played the games, but, I wasn't that into them. We played them, but we also did a lot of other stuff. And when the NES came out, it kind of mesmerized all of us. It became part of our life, in a way. So it wasn't any particular game. It wasn't, I think it was so on a different level, and all of us as kids at that age bonded around it. So it was literally the release of the NES and that first, 2-3 years of the games that were released that were so well done. I mean, it doesn't matter if they're old. The original Super Mario, the original Punch Out, the original Contra, Zelda, the original Gradius and, Life Force games, just everything. It was hard not to become passionate about it when something like that comes out and just changes your paradigm of what games are in a way.
That's such an irreplaceable time in gaming. Like that was just magical. I mean, it's hard to even explain, like, if you weren't around during that NES period, because there's so many new things happening that had never happened before in games. There were so many amazing new IPs that were just coming out seemingly all the time. And everyone in my neighborhood, I'm assuming for yours too, but like everyone in my neighborhood seemed to be playing like the same things, or like trading them back amongst each other. So I'd play this, and then when I was done, like let you borrow it and all that kind of stuff. But that the community that existed like in my neighborhood as a kid and in our school growing up with the NES was just astounding. And I lived in like a super small town, so I can't even imagine like in a city what it would have been like. So very, very cool. All right. So now I know that there are some soundtracks, video game soundtracks that you love, because I've heard you talk about them on your videos. But what are some video game soundtracks that are just your absolute favorite? And feel free to mention however many come to your mind, because I'm always happy to find a new soundtrack to rock to.
Oh, sure. Well, we just talked about Ys. Obviously, the early Ys games soundtracks are all incredible. A lot of the old PC Engine Turbo soundtracks are incredible, to be honest. Ys is there. I think anybody can say Rondo of Blood. Obviously, that's an incredible soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
To not say that. But that being said, I think in general, all the old chip tunes, all the old Konami chip tunes, to be honest with you. You know, all the Castlevania soundtracks are like chip tunes are classic. I love them, you know, not just Rondo of Blood. Ninja Gaiden, the original one, for both games, the first and the second one, just incredible music. Konami just could do no wrong back then with music for the most part. I mean, Gradius music is iconic, Life Force is iconic, the opening stage in R-Type is iconic. But, you know, as much as I love CD soundtracks, you know, now we've gotten used to them. We're not as impressed by them as we used to be, but chiptunes have always kind of kept their like novelty, I guess, in a way, because of they had to be more creative with it. So you had these like tunes that would just stick into your head. One that a lot of people never mention is Eschatos. That the soundtrack in that game makes the game for me. It's probably one of my favorite shmup soundtracks of all time. Absolutely love Eschatos soundtrack. So that one.
What platform is that on?
3. Eschatos. It was originally on Xbox 360, but now you can play it on Steam.
Okay.
And probably in Switch and a whole bunch of other systems that it was released for. That was released by Cute, the company that later made Natsuki Chronicles and Ginga Force and those other games. Oops.
That would be the cat, not
Breaks things.
I didn't do it.
She was so excited by the music that
I thought it was Timmy back there.
There is
Trying to get on camera.
there's a cat
in
just
the
off
cabinet.
screen and he knocked something over.
no, it's fine. It was really good timing though.
Yeah, no, if you haven't checked out or played Eschatos yet, definitely do it.
We'll
Game's
check that
amazing.
after we're done tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, or I had a video. It's called the history, like a brief history of Cute-em-ups, but it's spelled cute, Q-U-T-E, because it's basically just a history of their games. And the very beginning of that episode is just all about Eschatos. And if you're talking about hype, I challenge you to watch the opening 10 minutes of that video where I show and talk about Eschatos and not immediately play that game. I challenge you to not watch it and not immediately play the game afterwards.
That's so exciting.
I know what I'm doing after we're done.
Good.
I can't wait to watch the video and play Eschatos.
Yeah, even if you're not into shmups, you're gonna watch like the opening of that game, like that I start the video with, and you'll want to play it.
I wonder how many people you've gotten into shmups with your videos. I bet there's quite a few that just see how well produced they are.
In the comments.
Yeah, they're just so excited about how great the video is, and then they end up playing shmups and end up loving the genre. That's pretty cool.
I get comments like that all the time, and honestly, it's the main reason I kept going. Is I was just doing this for fun, and it's with every video. It's like, you got me into shmups. I love your videos. I didn't play them since I was young, and you got me back into them. And I get a lot of those comments, and that's really was the driving reason that kept me making videos. Is so many people were they're getting excited about the genre again, and the genre became very inclusive again. That our Discord grew, and instead of these very small kind of hardcore niche communities, more people started coming out of the woodwork because I was coming on screen and being kind of very open and positive and inclusive with the genre and videos, and that it's for everybody. Because to be honest, the impression that people get that it's only for hardcore players isn't true. Because from my background, just all the people I've known, all my friends, all the people that I interacted with on Instagram for years in that gaming community before I even started making videos, most of them are not shmup aficionados. Most of them aren't even very good. Most of them tell me, I suck at them, but I still love playing them. It's just, they just like playing the games. And that's how we were when we were kids, right? We just loved playing the games. We didn't care most of us didn't beat a lot of those games, but we just kept playing because they were fun. And there's a lot of people out there like that, and they just needed to feel like it was safe to come out and be like, yeah, that's why I play them. And have a community that was, some kindred spirits in the community that were the same.
Yeah. It's nice to have a welcoming community and not people just be like, get good.
Yeah.
Right.
And I have to imagine at a personal level that feels pretty rewarding to see that that kind of community grow based off the things that you're creating, right?
It's been fantastic. I mean, I don't want to take credit for it, but I've loved seeing it, and it's definitely helped keep me going. So, and it's the same reasons. It's why I played shmups. I never really, until I was very naive, coming into the community and into YouTube. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know about all these like niche hardcore communities. I was that player that really never thought about 1cc in games and clear amount of credit or whatever. I mean, it just would happen because I played games enough and I was good at them and I just enjoyed them where I eventually got good enough and it would just happen. But it wasn't like a practice or a pastime or a necessity. So I didn't see that whole side of it, really. I literally came in naive from that perspective. It was a learning experience for my part when I did.
Very cool.
Very cool. All right, Jack.
All right. Yeah. So let's take another hypothetical situation here. So you get to create an entry in one of the dormant shmup franchises. Gradius, R-Type, something that hasn't had an entry for a little while. Which series are you picking, and do you go with a modern soundtrack, or do you go with something with chip tunes?
I'll make the caveat that it has to be done by the right developer, obviously, and it has to be, or the people that which is not possible because those developers are long gone. But if we could get the same level of game or the same quality of game that we used to get at the time, it's a tough call. I think you said franchise, so it has to be not a style game. It has to be a franchise, and honestly, we haven't seen a good Gradius game in far too long. R-Type is not dormant because they just came out with R-Type from Final 2, Final 3. But I would love to see a Gradius 6, made by, in the style of, some of the older original games, with the same kind of, and I would definitely want to see chiptunes. And Gradius 5 is an exception because that was a game made by Treasure and it was a phenomenal game. It wasn't really a Gradius game. It was just a really good game, regardless of what it was. But if they're going to revive Gradius, I don't think they can duplicate Gradius 5. It was kind of unique in its own right, and it was a Treasure game. I would want to see something kind of like the, Gradius 2, Gradius 3, but modernized, with, graphic. I still want to see the chiptunes, though. I would prefer that. If it's Konami level.
Yeah.
That would be rad.
I think they're doing a lot of remakes now.
Well, they are. I mean, I to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if they were working on it. And it just comes down to, people hear it's coming and they get excited, but really don't get excited until you know who the developer is. That's the important part. Who's behind the game. Kind of like if you look at Natsume, and the games that they've been re-releasing, they re-released Pocky and Rocky, and they re-released Ninja Warriors, and they re-released Wild Guns, and all those games are incredibly good. They're on the level of the originals, and that's because Natsume is, a lot of the original developers are still kind of in the picture and involved, and they're part of it, so they know what they're doing, and they're kind of duplicating that, but it's really rare to see.
Yeah.
Because most of those developers are, they're retired, they're gone, they've moved on. You're not going to find that.
That's awesome. Very cool.
All right, Logan, you want to jump back into the chat? And then
Of course.
we've got a major question.
Yeah, there's two of them here. Okay, so from YouTube, Jason O'Hare, how did you come up with Timmy?
Oh, gosh, that's a good one. I was working on a tech video. I was working on an HDMI lag video where it was a very technical video, and I just wanted to dispel all these myths about HDMI input lag and all this nonsense. And it was kind of like a dispelling myth. So I needed somebody to bounce it off of. And because I was always making videos by myself, I watched these other channels like Console Wars, and then back when GameStack had two people, and it's such a different dynamic. Having two people, it's fun. And that's something I wanted to be able to duplicate. I'm like, well, how am I going to do that? I don't have someone to make videos with. And so I was making this HDMI lag video, and I needed a foil. I needed kind of like that tinfoil hat, annoying troll-like type character that was going to basically parrot all of the nonsense that's out there on the internet. That basically the guy that reads Reddit and reads all the forums and then just parrots it all off, and they don't know what they're talking about. That was going to kind of like talk about all, basically push all the myths about HDMI and input lag on the video. And so I made him that way, just so I have a foil. And then that's how it started. And it was so much fun doing that. I'm like, maybe I can incorporate him into like other videos. And it just kind of took on a life of its own. And it gave me an opportunity to be stupid and silly, which I like doing. So it's kind of like, there's like 50% of Timmy in there somewhere, but I don't act it out. So now it's like, oh, I'm making these videos, I can be Timmy. And I can do stupid ass shit, and I can come up and I can come up with these ridiculous. And as long as I do it as him, I can get away with it.
Great.
So and people started so some people don't like, I can do cringe humor and get away with it. So that's where it all started, and it just kind of went on from there. And now he comes and goes. I only use him when appropriate, but it's still fun when I'm in the mood. I suppose.
That's
I love the
awesome.
tinfoil hat too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice
Tinfoil
touch.
Timmy.
All right. Fourth question from Fenris. What's one game that was excruciatingly difficult but kept you coming back for more?
Oh gosh. That's like that hard NES games. We can't stop playing video.
Yeah.
Right. There's plenty of excruciatingly difficult shmups, I suppose. So there's too many to pick from, but I enjoy them enough. Like if I didn't enjoy them, I wouldn't keep coming back to them. But the game that always pops into my head is honestly the original Ghosts and Goblins on NES. And I don't know why, because it is excruciating and it is excruciating to play, but there was something about the game that like I just had to finish it. And I had to keep playing it, and it gave me nightmares. Like I would play it and I would nightmares about it the next day or that night, and then I just had to come back to it. And I had to come back to it, and like I knew that it would be my foil. Like I would always know that it beat me if I didn't like find a way to finish it somehow. So like that's the one that was excruciating for me, and like that was one of the games I highlighted in that video for that reason.
Did you make it through the first run and be like, oh my gosh, I have to do this again? What are you doing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because back then we didn't know that was going to happen. Now people are like, well, they expect it to happen, but at the time, I didn't know if I wanted to play it again a second time through, to be honest. But yeah, it was that game is not one I really come back to anymore. Like I'll play it for fun here and there, but I don't feel like the need to go and beat it again. After that, I was like, I'm done. I was good. I finished it. Like it's something on backlog. I'm don't need to do that.
That's some of the angriest I've ever been at a game. I got so angry at that game when I rented it way back in the day.
Well, the worst thing about the angriest I got at that game, and this was a true story, and I showed that in the Hard NES Games video, is that you spent so much time getting through it, and then you're in the second loop or wherever it is, and you get when you're playing and you get frustrated and you're continuing, you start mashing on the controller because you just want to continue really quick.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about Ghosts and Goblins is when you die and it goes to like that screen again, you have to hit select to go down to continue, and you have to be really, really careful about it. You can't just hit start.
Yep.
So when you're not thinking and you're just mashing, you're like and you're starting start, it restarts the game over again. So I don't know how many hours I spent getting as far as I did, and then something happened. I was frustrated. I was mashing the start button on the controller, and it started the game over again, and I just lost. I lost my shit.
I bet.
That was it.
We were.
I don't know if I was 12 or whatever I was, and I threw the controller, and I got in trouble. I don't.
We were younger then, but like I got so mad at a few games in that era, I like bit my controller really hard with my teeth. And there are like I still have that controller, and there are these little teeth indentions. probably some from that game.
That's funny.
All right, Logan, do you have any more, or do you want to hit him up with the dot question?
There's a few more. I'm gonna cap it at the ones that are currently in the chat. There's 3 more. Do you think we could do that, or should save them for the next round?
It's up to you. You are the question master.
We'll go with this next one and just see how we do for time.
Right.
So another from Jason O'Hare. Do you think Shmup game design needs to be changed or updated for modern players? If yes, what changes would you suggest?
I do think yes. I don't know if the overall design needs to change. I think what made them great, what made them work, still works. But what I've seen the best games doing is they find a way to train the player properly and ease them into the game correctly, so it's fun. They need to be intuitive to pick up and play. So the best games now, a lot of the modern shmups are doing this, where it's not necessarily just a dedicated training mode, but the way they structure the game and the way they structure the opening levels, at least on certain easy modes, it allows you to kind of learn the game and enjoy it and get your feet wet and know what you're getting into, and it progresses a certain way, as opposed to before they were just arcade-based games. You just get in there, maybe you get through the first level and then it kicks your ass. and it's kind of overwhelming from there. So I don't know if like the very nature of shmup game design needs to change, but I think a lot of what's happened that pretty much the indie scene has taken over. You know, there's not a lot of big AAA developers making shmups anymore. And it's these small indie developers that are coming up with great ways to change it up and create new mechanics for shmups. More than anything, they're creating fantastic training modes for these games and making it so, you know, anyone can feel comfortable playing it, because that's something that they were missing at the time.
That's
Definitely
awesome.
so.
Awesome. All right. I think I'll hit up the next two and then we'll move on. But please keep asking questions. These are great.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, question 5 from Fenris. What is the most unique shooter you've played?
Oh my gosh. There's so many unique shooters I've played. Like, what's the most unique? Unique or good, I guess, is the real question, because there's definitely some really unique ones, but they weren't necessarily good. Unique per se. Gosh. What's a good unique one? One that, you know, like when I think of unique, like unusual shmups, you know, I think of games like Cho and Iki on PC Engine on Saturn, you know, because
that was going to be one of my first ones.
Yeah, you know, they're
ask
unique. They're just, you know, they're not incredible games, but they're so ridiculous and they're so insane. So they're unique from a artistic standpoint. You know, or like Toilet Kids, it's unique because it's about toilets. But, you know, I think the easy answer for a lot of people, they'll say this because it was popular for that reason, was, you know, a lot of people, when they come up with unique, they use Treasure as an example because, you know, like Ikaruga, for example, was unique. You know, when they came out with it, that mechanic didn't really exist, you know, and if it did, I'd never heard of it, or most people hadn't. So, and to this day, there's no other game that's really done it in that way. You know, the idea of, you know, color switching and having the different bullet colors, it completely turned the game into a different experience. You know, Radiant Silvergun was unique in a different way, you know, whereas you had all those weapons and you had to use them in specific chains to upgrade them through the game as you play them. Treasure's kind of known for uniqueness in that in that sense, mechanically.
Awesome. I think Addy Sensei has the next question and also just responded to this previous one. So saying Hellsinker, that would be what they pick for.
Oh yeah,
unique
Hellsinker
one.
is, yeah, that's like unique and extremely complex.
Okay, so their question is, do you like one-screen platformer games like Tumble Tumble, Iceman, Donut Dodo, and the original Donkey Kong?
Kind of. I got into them to a point. They were fun, but I think that was more of that kind of like early arcade Atari style game where it kept my attention for a certain amount of time. But after a while, like, you know, I kind of moved on to something else. So I do enjoy them, but not as much as like, especially like, you know, you're thinking of like Space Invader, single screen, you know, those type of games. They were not as visceral as like, it was really when games evolved a little bit from that point onto like the NES style games that I really, really got into video games, and they became a little bit more of an experience for me.
I
Awesome.
can see that.
Now, that being said, I don't want, like, there's certain exceptions, like Bubble Bobble, for example, is an incredible game. And I don't know if that counts as a single screen because it keeps shifting through different levels, but each stage is its own kind of like, you know, unique thing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Cool.
I think it counts.
I think it counts too.
All right. So I think we're going to move on to next round of questions, but yeah, please keep sending stuff. Anyway, for my question, tell us about the Toa Plan documentary, which we mentioned earlier in the show.
Okay, gosh. Okay, so I won't go too crazy with it because I don't want to take up too much time from the show. But basically, it's mostly finished now. I've, you know, got the original draft out. It's, you know, being approved by the different parties. I'm sure there will be some changes to it. I don't know when it's going to release, simply because, you know, even though once it's done, you know, there's a lot of, you know, the Blu-rays have to be pressed. There's a lot of, you know, supplementary materials and things that have to happen. But it is most of the way there. That's why I've kind of come back to the channel and started making videos again, because I have more time now. Before, I didn't even get to play games because I had to focus on the doc. But it's really exciting. It's come out fantastic. I'm really not aware of many video game developer documentaries like this that exist out there. I've seen the one by My Life in Gaming when they did them too, and that one was really, really cool, and that inspired me for this one. But really, like in terms of the depth of the interviews, and it's on a whole different level. The fact that we were able to go back and get so many different original Toa Plan members to come back and interview people that, you know, we didn't think would ever come back on camera, and talk about the games is really, really incredible. The materials we were able to put together. We were lucky because Tatsujin Corp is still around. So they were able to help Joseph Pierce, who's the director of the documentary. This was his brainchild, not mine. He made friends with Tatsuya Uemura, and through him he met some of the other Toa Plan staff and became a huge fan and friends with them, and they helped him get in touch with other Toa Plan members. And that's where he came up with the idea of, you know, doing this documentary for them. He brought me in later because he saw my compile shooters video, history of compile shooters, and he thought, this is exactly like, he really liked the video, and he thought, this is the person I want to do the editing. He came to me. I thought it was an awesome idea. I was very familiar with Toa Plan. And then we put it together a Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter I helped, did extremely well. It blew past all of, the whatever our original goals were for it. So we even got to do extra supplemental materials for it. Some of which we've already released, by the way, which came out really, really great. We have a 20 to 30 minute long interview with Tsuneki Ikeda from Cave, where he talks about his love for Tatsujin and his time working at Toa Plan and how he was influenced by them and everything. It's such a wonderful video. He's so entertaining. We did a live commentary where Joe plays Tatsujin live while Masahiro Yuge, who is like the main programmer and designer of Tatsujin, and Tsuneki Ikeda and Ikeda Minorak all comment and talk about the game and all the details and how the development went as he's playing it live.
That's cool.
Going through the game, we've done that. So anyway, yeah, without going too crazy into it, it's just a lot of Toa Plan was a very unusual company. It was a very secretive company. You hear all these stories about them getting into fights at bars and drinking and doing all these crazy things on their time off. And a lot of the information about them online is wrong. It's incomplete, or it's untrue, or it's incomplete. So there's a lot of new information that's going to come out in this documentary that just doesn't exist. And hopefully some of these wikis will go back and correct some of that information.
Yeah.
But they tell some really fun stories. And so I have a feeling that once this comes out, maybe there will be other game companies that come forward and be like, hey, we want a documentary too.
Here's hoping.
So here's how it works out, right? Although it's not easy. Like I said, people are like, oh, make a documentary about these guys, make a documentary about these guys. But unless the developers are still around, if they are interested and you can get the permission and the rights and everything else. And that's really been the hardest part, honestly, of making the doc, is on YouTube, I can just do whatever I want. And we have certain usage rights here in the United States. As long as I'm using it a certain way, I can show whatever footage I want, or games that I want, or flyers that I want, and talk about whatever I want to, because I have, because we have certain protections here. If you're using an artistic way, you can do that. You don't have that in Japan necessarily. So, you can't use this, you can't use that, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't show this, you can't show that, you can't say this, you can't say that. So there's a lot of, unless you have very specific permission from the people who are involved in it, can't do it, can't use it, can't say it. So even if it's in a documentary, or you can get in trouble, or they could sue you or whatever. So there's a lot of limitations there. So that's been a challenge on Joe's side and my side, like to, you can't find these people, you can't get permission from a lot of them because they're not around, but you can't risk using it if all of a sudden they see it and they're like, oh, we didn't give you permission to do that. Yeah. So this is challenging on that front too. Yeah, anyway, it's really exciting. I can't wait till it comes out, and I think people are going to really, really enjoy it when it does.
I can't wait to see it. It's so cool
I'm
these days
to
get like documentaries and things like that. I mean, going back to our NES days, I mean, you got like GamePro TV with JD Roth, and that was about all that you could get in terms of video content on video games. And now we have so much cool stuff.
Absolutely.
That is just great. So I can't wait to see it.
We were able to get we were able to get the staff, they weren't just sitting and talking, we actually scheduled trips out to a lot of their old office buildings and where they used to work, a lot of the old bars they used to drink at and
That's
get together at and eat. So they're just kind of sitting around having drinks, talking about different things and, reminiscing about stuff.
That is so cool.
Some people we thought we'd never be able to get on camera and people that they've never heard of. So it'll be fun.
Really cool. Sure that jogged some memories for them too.
Oh yeah, it definitely did, because a lot of them, sometimes you ask the question like, you know what, I don't remember. I'm not sure. I mean, because they were really, really young. This was almost 40 years ago. This was a very long time ago.
Wow. So we love promoting like all of our guests, whatever they've got. So other than the Kickstarter, is there a way for people to get the documentary once it's out, or can they pre-order it anywhere?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Once the documentary is out, it'll be available to everybody. You'll be able to, pre-order, because they have to make a certain amount of Blu-rays, so they'll have their chance. And even if they don't want the physical, it'll be available digitally too. We're not withholding it on anyone. The people who are in the Kickstarter get like the special slipcase, the special art, like certain special things that they get because they're part of the Kickstarter. But everybody will have access to the documentary. Absolutely. There's a possibility, I don't know if there will be, to be like a second Kickstarter. I know sometimes they do that because there's a lot of people that missed it and didn't know about it. And they're like, oh, I wanted to get in. So that's not really up to me. But if they're able to, because there's a lot of logistics involved, but if they're able to do it, that may happen once we're a little bit closer and things are getting made.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But I didn't even mention it. The name of the documentary is called "All Your Base Are Belong to Toa Plan."
Oh,
For obvious reasons.
Solid.
So if you Google that and you put "All Your Base Are Belong to Toa Plan" instead of us, it'll come up, and the Kickstarter will come up.
that's cool. I love the reference too. I mean the
You have
zeroing obviously, but even going back to like the early internet days or the late 90s, that meme that went around with that song for "All Your Base Are Belong to Us."
Oh yeah.
Such good memories of those times.
And the funny part is a lot of people at ToaPlan didn't even know. They didn't hear about it. Like even at the interview, they were like, they're like, really? What is it about?
What?
Like they didn't even know about the meme. Yeah.
They're world famous. They didn't know. Wow.
Oh man.
Not at all.
Huh.
That's crazy. All right, Darria, you're up.
So there are certain like video games that I've played that have so many memories surrounding them. Are there any like favorite memories that you have surrounding video games? Maybe playing with friends, discovering shmups for the first time, anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's definitely, the memories are all based around like what I did with friends back then as kids, because it wasn't so much playing alone by myself, which we obviously did, but it was the time that we spent together that was the most memorable for me. A lot of times, whether it was people coming over my house, we were playing Life Force together or Contra together, or we were watching each other play or whatever it was, or renting games. Like we would rent, Mega Drive games because I didn't have one, and I would go over their house and, we'd spend time playing. A lot of the fighting games were popular at the time. I think one of the biggest memories that any of us would have from that time would be playing Street Fighter 2 at 7-Eleven. I think we all did that. We all stood in line. We had little quarters on the glass, and we just talk smack on the way there. Like that was our weekend routine. Like I would rent a Mega Drive game or Genesis game. One of us would go over to their house. We'd play it for part of the day. Then we'd walk from the house down to, this is Los Angeles. There was a famous comic book shop called the Golden Apple. And we would walk there, go to the comic store, and we'd spend time in there and buy comics and on the way back, we'd stop at the 7-Eleven and we'd play Street Fighter. Like that was just like the routine. And then we all had our characters, and we'd, go at it for a while, and then we go back home. It's like almost every weekend that was the thing.
Such a cool time. Well, who excuse me, who was your character?
Oh gosh. I had to pick, I used Guile more than anyone else. Mainly because he's cheap. He was easy to kick. He was easy to kick butt with, but also because everyone else was taking Ryu and Ken. Like, so I wanted to be different. My friends like, oh, I'm gonna play Ryu, Ken, or a lot of people use Blanca because he was kind of OP for a while. So I used Guile. Yeah, so I used Guile.
Nice, very cool. So what is a game that I probably haven't played but I should?
I mentioned it already earlier. It's called Eschatos. You need to watch the video, and you need to play it.
I will. Yeah. I will watch it and play it for sure.
That is the game.
Cool.
Nice.
Awesome.
So-
and Jack.
Easy answer.
Yeah. So, like, I think you mentioned a little bit before about just the community you've built or has been built around a lot of your videos. Is there anything else that you're most proud of with your channel so far?
Oh gosh, I think the absolute most thing I'm proud of the channel so far is just that it's brought a lot of people who play shmups together again. It seems like everything was just very stratified. It's not like the shmup players didn't exist, you know. And the Instagram was really. I came from Instagram, and we had this really tight knit community of shmup players. So I kind of felt like I brought that to YouTube in a way. The videos were accessible and fun, and it was that sense of community that we brought back with the Discord. I didn't even know what would happen with it. I originally created it just so we could have some shmup caravans, and then it grew and it grew and it grew and grew to over like 1,000 members. And I'm not sure how many members it has now. I have my friend Actane, who's the admin for it. But it's really just that. I wouldn't call bringing shmups into the mainstream because they've never been mainstream. I don't think they're going to be mainstream, but it's more of just creating not just bringing a community together, but creating kind of a space for the community where any type of or level of player feels welcome. I think, at least on our Discord, it's very open and welcoming. There's a lot of beginners. We have a lot of documentation, a lot of intros, and a lot of people who are supporting that in a way. So it's also a really great place for developers. That's one of the other things I'm proud of is just the indie developers. There's a place where a lot of indie developers can come and show off their games and get their games seen and played by a lot of people and tested, and get feedback and things like that. So the Discord is a really good place for that too.
It's a good community.
That's awesome.
It's a good community for sure. All right, Logan.
Yeah.
Any more chats?
So there is one more chat message from Dave Car 10. Good point on the training modes. Gunvane has a good couple tutorials that teaches some shmup basics pretty well, such as manipulating aim shots and navigating static patterns.
Yep, he's right. Gunvane has done a really nice job of kind of training players in the basics on how to play the game before it starts. It was developed by someone named Boghog, who's very, very well versed in gameplay mechanics in general, especially shmup mechanics. He did that for NG Dev Team, and he's working on more games now. So I'm not necessarily supposed to. I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about the games he's working on yet or not, but he is, and you can look forward to them being just as good as Gunvane was, which was a fantastic game, by the way.
Awesome. All right, I'll move on to my question here. But yeah, any more questions in the chat, just let us know. So why are classic and retro games just as compelling as modern games?
I think they're compelling for different reasons, I can say. Because when you say modern games, I'm assuming you don't mean like modern retro style games. You probably mean more kind of like AAA, large AAA type titles. They're compelling for different reasons. I think with the classic and retro games, they are compelling in an arcade way, because a lot of them were based. People who were the developers at the time had an arcade-based mentality. So it was very much about, practice and repetition and certain types of gameplay and fun. It's the games themselves were not overly long. They weren't, 5, 6, 20-hour experiences necessarily unless they were RPGs. They just had certain mechanics that were replayable. Like Punch-Out is the simplest game in the world, but you can just keep playing it. Because there's something about it, they focused on the gameplay. Whereas with modern games, I think they're compelling because they're more immersive. They tell a certain story. And sometimes they're too immersive. Sometimes they focus so much on, all the extras and the million little like niggling things that you can do that they kind of lose focus on what they're about. But that being said, I absolutely love playing through, Elden Ring and a lot of those Dark Souls games. I love playing through, even basic games. Like, I'll play through the Horizon games and God of War and everything like that because it's a different type of experience. Sometimes it can get a little overindulgent, but as long as the gameplay is there, that's really what matters. It's immersive. My wife put over 300 hours into Breath of the Wild.
Whoa.
She just kept playing it and playing it and playing it. Just over the course of a year, like she just got into it and loved it because for her that was immersive. So I think it's different for everyone. There's no good or bad. it's really what your type of game is. You know, I played through Baldur's Gate 3 with my wife because it's something we could play together, and it was immersive and it was fun. You know, we're not going to play Contra together, but I'll do that with my son. So they all have their place.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned Elden Ring. Like, do you find that there's like with Dark Souls and with the Elden Ring games, like do you find that there's a similar satisfaction with learning the patterns of bosses, similar to like what you would go through with Shmups?
To a point, I think there is. I like when the games have a certain level of precision to them. I really enjoyed Sekiro for that reason. Almost to like a ridiculous degree of how the precision involved in that one, because you have to be. I do feel that the Dark Souls games are still more forgiving than the old games, simply because you can just keep retrying to a certain extent, and learn and play. I actually love Bloodborne. It's probably one of my favorite games of theirs, more so than the Dark Souls games, Bloodborne and then Sekiro. But in general, they're immersive, and they're rewarding because they're difficult, and they punish you in certain ways when you don't perform. But I don't know, growing up playing like some of the really brutal games like back then, like it's not anything new or different for the most part. They're not necessarily as frustrating. They're difficult, but they're still manageable, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally does.
They don't have me throwing my controller like certain like some of the old games. But it's nice when there's precision. Like if it's just hard for the sake of hard, that's nice. And when there's too much repetition, it gets boring. So like with some of the Dark Souls games, they were good, they were hard, but I kind of got my fill with them after a certain point. Whereas with like Bloodborne was unique enough and it was very offensive. So I loved it for that reason, because you had to play it offensively, and Sekiro just was so precise that you had to be on your game like the entire time. You couldn't just repeat the same pattern over again and turtle and be defensive and kind of cheat your way through fights and stuff like that.
Yep.
And that's how the Ninja Gaiden 3D games were like on the Xbox. So the first two are really good.
Yeah.
For that same reason.
I'm excited to see what they do with 4. I'm hoping that the name is escaping me.
I think Platinum Games is making,
yes,
right?
Platinum. Thank you. Yeah, Platinum. I really hope Platinum brings their normal sensibilities to it, because that should be cool.
I hope so. It definitely looks intriguing. I'm looking forward to it. I try not to get my hopes up too much, because the originals are so good.
Yeah.
I mean, even like the not just the originals, but the 3D ones. The first two were so good that it's hard to live up to. So, and there's that tendency to like, yes, we want to make it for the fans, but we also want to help. We want to make it for most modern gamers, and so they can kind of indulge too a little bit. So they have to strike that balance and see where it ends up.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a few more questions in chat now. I'm going to hit a couple of them. If any more come in, we're going to hit them on the next round, in case we don't get yours right away. But these two are from Fenris. So question 6, what are your thoughts on Deep Blue on the PCE TG16, considered the worst shooter on the platform?
Yeah.
If you want my thoughts on that game, you can watch it on my worst Schmups video.
There you go.
It's not the feature game, which is Trevor McFur, but it is in there. And I mean, I think the thoughts are it's just really, really poor game. It's not very well made. If you try to play it legitimately, it destroys you. If you cheat, if you cheat your way through it, you can bypass most of it by cheating and just kind of hanging out and sitting in certain parts of the screen. And it's just a very poorly made game.
Cool. Okay. And then next question, then we'll move on, and we'll hit any more on the next round. CRTs versus LCDs. Where do you stand for the definitive retro experience?
Well, I guess if you're an old fart like me, then the definitive retro experience is with a CRT, simply because that's where the nostalgia is. There's a certain look to it. It's not even just the look, like it's the glow. Like, there's a certain black level to it. When you play it in the dark, the colors pop a certain way. No matter what you do with an LCD, it just does. I mean, as great as the tinks are and everything else, it's not the same as a CRT. So if that's what you're looking for, if that's what you grew up with, I mean, that's kind of the only way to do it. But that being said, I use my flat screen to play games all the time, and I play games on the PC all the time. So I'm not particularly picky in that sense. The CRT has the least amount of input lag, so that's helpful. But just in general, I just go to my CRT when I want the nostalgia factor. At that point, I don't care if it's RGB, I don't care if it's SCART. S video is good enough. If anything, it has to look a little bit worse, because then it reminds me what it used to look like when I actually played it. With the RF modulator back in the day.
Yeah,
Good point.
On the TV, it looks too perfect otherwise. So it's just playing it the way I used to play it. That's what I go with.
very cool.
Yeah. All right.
Darria, you're up.
So, how is that Saturn video coming along, and are there any teasers you can give us?
The teaser's already out. I have a trailer that I posted on Twitter and a couple other places for people to enjoy. And it's coming on pretty well. I'm up to the letter. I'm finished with almost finished with the letter G. Gives you an idea. So I still have a little bit of a ways to go. Now, to be fair, a lot of that is front loaded, so a lot of the games are out of the way, and maybe it's halfway there. But there's still a lot of S's and T's to go through. But it's going great. It's going to be another long one. I'm sure it'll probably be over 3 hours long, like the other ones were. So it takes a while. But the coolest thing about it, honestly, it's coming out great, is that this time I was able to get several other expert players involved. With my previous videos, I always had Mark MSX from the Electric Underground on there, because he's the great dude and I love him, and I always have him kind of pitch in on the videos. But now I've got 6-7 other people who each took a game or two and are also some of their favorites. So it's not just me and my opinions. It's all these other kind of expert players that love these certain games, and they're doing their reviews for games that they picked.
That's
on the
cool.
Saturn. So I think
Very
that
cool.
kind of breaks it up a little bit, and I like that it's going in that direction. So yeah, it's coming along.
Cool. I'm stoked. When I saw that teaser come out when a week ago or whenever it was, I was pretty excited to know you were still making videos, for one, and so to see that you were kind of back in the saddle making videos was exciting. And then the Saturn is just one of my all-time favorite systems.
Oh yeah, that
Pretty rad.
The premiere's going to be off the hook. I know a lot of people are looking forward to it, and I usually don't do premieres, but I always do them for every XXX console reviewed, because they're popular. And there's usually a few hundred, 4 or 5, usually up to 600 people. They're all on there, and a couple times they bog down YouTube and it starts crashing. And it's annoying. And it's breaking up, and it scares me. But people enjoy those premieres so much. It's this 3-4 hour long thing, and people block off part of their weekend, and they sit and we just chat about it, because what people do with those is they guess what the reviews are going to be. With every one of those, I do a contest or a competition, or I do some kind of a giveaway for the top 3, and everybody I do a questionnaire, and everybody picks what they think the ranks are going to, because I rank every game. So that makes it fun. It becomes kind of like fantasy football, where they're watching it live and they have their picks, and they're watching my picks come out live, and they're comparing what they pick, their ranks to my ranks. So the person with the highest score at the end, who picked the closest to my ranks, ends up winning and getting something. So it kind of makes it a little more fun as they're watching the premiere of the video. So I'm sure it'll be great for the Saturn too.
Exciting. I'm excited for that for sure. Well, do you have time for one more round of questions?
I do, sure.
Okay, let's do it. So since starting Shmup Junkie, you've kind of said maybe what the best thing is, unless you have another one, but what is the kind of the best experience you've had due to your channel, and what is the worst? If you had any negative experiences?
Gotcha. It's hard to say. I don't know if, the greatest experience is probably what we mentioned already, talked about earlier. It's just, I think the people that I've met, there's just, I can't say enough about how incredible the community is. I always heard about how nasty YouTube can be, and I watch these, and there's other channels, and there's these trolls that come on all the time, and there's all these negative commenters, and we really just don't get that much on the channel. Every now and then, something will come out of the blue, and I just delete it. But it's been incredible, just how tight-knit the community has been. Almost to the point where people, they love commenting. I love chatting with them. I love meeting people on there. And the people I've met And it's almost like they've become protective. You know, when somebody posts something mean or nasty or negative or that doesn't belong there, like I don't even, like by the time I notice it, some like other people have already come in there and just like, you know, they're either blasting them or taking care of it or whatever it is.
The Shmup army.
And if it doesn't, so it's kind of like everybody's on, I don't want to say the same page, but they're just like, there's a positive vibe to the channel in general and to the commenters and the community. And like, we just don't tolerate the nastiness. And I really enjoyed that part of it, you know, and I kind of do my part to police it best I can. And it's not dissenting opinions. We love that. I love when someone comes in and says, oh, you're wrong. You know what you're talking about. Like, because it's a constructive comment, you know, and then we can have a fun discussion. It's more about the people that are just there to be, you know, be assholes or,
I know.
Or be nasty or negative. And like, there's just very, very little of that, you know, knock on wood, you know, but that's been a great experience. And as far as negative, I don't know if there's anything nasty or negative, to be honest. The hardest experience about being a YouTuber is just when videos don't do well. So, you know, sometimes you have a really great idea and you put your heart and soul into it and you work hard on it and it comes out really, really good. Like, it's a great video, it's a great product, and people who watch it love it. But for whatever reason, it just doesn't get picked up. You know, the topic's not interesting, or it's not there, or the thumbnail's not great, and it bombs. And it's kind of like, oh man, you know, so it's disappointing in that sense. But if anything, it's a learning experience, because I wouldn't call it a bad or worst experience, because it's from those experiences that you learn the most. It's from those videos that don't do well, you know, and they're not failures, but it's that's helped me improve the most. It's helped me see what people want to see, what people don't want to see, what people are interested in, what they're not interested in, you know, and how to kind of focus my content in the right direction and take that as, you know, constructive feedback. You know, that's about as bad as I can come up with, you know.
That's awesome.
It's been a fun ride, to be honest.
That's great. That's great to hear.
Really cool.
For sure. Now, Jack, you've got some more lightning, I hear.
Yep.
to throw at us.
So since it's this last round of questions, I figure it's lightning round time. So I'm gonna have you pick your favorites here. I know you probably don't want to, but two choices. I just want your favorite of the two. All right.
Okay.
All right. Here we go. Number one: Vic Viper or the Arrowhead?
The Arrowhead is cooler.
All right. Konami Kuheya Sound Club or Zuntata?
Oh man, love them both, but Konami, all original soundtracks, legendary for me.
All right. Treasure or Cave?
I'm gonna go with Treasure.
All right. Taco or Opa Opa?
Ooh, Taco or Opa Opa? I'll go with Taco.
All right. Konami or Taito?
Konami.
Okay. Air-to-air combat or air-to-ground combat?
Air to air.
All right. Capcom or ToaPlan?
If we're talking shmups only, Toa Plan. If we're talking everything overall, Capcom.
All right. 1943 Kai or Gradius 2?
Gradius 2.
All right. FM or Roland?
Oh gosh,
It's a tough
I
one.
love PC games too. I think I'll go with FM just for the nostalgia of it,
All right.
even though Roland is superior.
Darius or Raiden?
Darius.
Moai or Yashichi?
Moai.
And then last one, Ripple or traditional laser?
Traditional laser.
All right.
Yeah, with that.
Awesome. Very good. Very good.
Love it.
You passed.
Cheekies. It's hardcore. All right, Logan.
Okay.
Do you want to hit it up with the final chat questions?
Yep. Okay, so Maximus Prime says FromSoft music is usually great, especially for bosses. Do you agree?
FromSoft? Oh, sure. Yeah, it's kind of hard sometimes for me to think of FromSoft because the games are so large and expansive. A lot of times the music is more atmospheric, I guess you could say. It's really only with the bosses and certain things like that where it really comes out and becomes more dramatic. Yeah, I definitely agree, especially because the boss fights are like so tense.
Yeah. Okay. And then from Dave Carten, what do you think of Yagawa's games such as Battle Garega? Its deep mechanics are so interesting to me. It's pretty cool how much the community was able to figure out about that game back in the day.
Gosh, I think all Yagawa games just kick my ass more than anything else. It took me a really long time to kind of wrap my head around and get into those games because I approached shmups from the perspective of a enthusiast. where I just played for fun, and it's casual. And the Yagawa games are not casual. They're not just enthusiasts. Like you got to be ready to go to war. So, and it's not just the game is difficult necessarily, but because you, like you said, the rank system and the mechanics of something like Garega or any of Yagawa's games are so complex that you really have to understand and figure out the games. So it's hard to imagine back in the day, like you think back, like now, you can look up on internet, like here's the mechanics, here's how that works. I can watch videos, I can do this, and you can become good. But put yourself in, in our shoes back, early internet before, you didn't have access to stuff, and you're trying to play these games in the arcade or on the Saturn. It's like hitting a wall. You're figuring this out on your own unless you have this community to bounce these ideas off of. It was, and still there was these super players in Japan that would come in and learn how to smoke these games. They were on a different level. That's for sure, and that's why Yagawa had to come out with games like that, because arcade developers they need to make money, and they kept making these games, and there were these players that would come out and just sit on the machine and play it and beat them on a quarter because they weren't hard enough. So they had to make them and whenever they would have their testing days, where they bring it out and they bring people in to test to see what the game is like. They talk about this a little bit in the Toa Plan documentary too, is those kind of events would attract super players. So you get all these really good players to come out there, and they find ways to break your game, and the developer had to keep going back and making the game harder and harder and harder and fixing it. And it's good from one perspective, but it's also skewed. So, you end up with this game that's just unbelievably hard at the end, because you had the feedback coming from these incredible players that are, they think they're making the game hard, and then these incredible players show up and they make it look easy, and they find a and they find a way to cheat the game, and then they have to go back and and fix it and make it harder and harder. So you end up with stuff like that.
Okay, I think last question I'm going to hit from the chat tonight. Icky Phoenix, inconvenient question. What is your top 10? I'm not sure what they're asking,
gosh.
But I'm
Top
guessing
10 is
Schmups.
that's a lot of Schmups.
Yeah.
I'd have to think about a top 10. Gosh. Some of them are easy because it's just the ones you play the most. It's not necessarily the best games. So that comes down to nostalgia. Like I play Lords of Thunder a lot. I play Eschatos a lot because it's a great game now. After I discovered it, I'll play Soldier Blade a lot. I'll play a lot of Compile games a lot in general because I liked a lot of Compile's older games. But that being said, I mean, gosh, there's so many. To come up with a top 10, I could probably go on. I'd have to pick like 3 from the PC Engine, 3 from the Mega Drive, maybe one couple from the Super Nintendo, some from the Saturn.
Like the best 16-bit shooter video you did.
Spread them all around. I think in terms of the side scrollers, like with Konami, like I think Parodius are some of my favorites because I actually like the Parodius games more than I like the Gradius games, because they're basically Gradius games, but they're even more creative and cool in that sense. So like, like the original Parodius Da, I've always loved. It was one of my favorite games. Like that one too.
All right.
Cool. I don't know if that was 10. I mean, like I said, I go on.
And
there's no particular order. Like I said, there's so many. Probably not even thinking of.
It's a lot of good games.
Okay. So I think we'll move on to the last couple of our questions for the night. So mine, what is a controversial opinion of a game that everyone either loves or hates that you disagree with?
Oh gosh.
Back into the shrub question.
Yeah. A controversial opinion of a game that everyone either loves or hates. So do they either love or hate it, or do they, like, most people love it but I hate it? Or it's either
like that, or vice versa.
Or most people hate it and I love it. I'll come with a controversial one. And I don't want to say I hate it, but it's not for me. And I think that game for me is Ikaruga, actually. I think everybody loves that game. I love what it represents. I love the mechanics of it. I enjoy playing it to a point, but it's too technical for me. It's kind of like, it's one of those games where I like playing, but I don't keep coming back to it, because if I don't play it constantly, I forget how to play it because of how complex it is. So it's one of those games that you just kind of into or not, you just get or not. So when it originally came out, I played it for a while. I got good enough at it. To be able to be, finish it relatively fairly on a basic mode. But that game is so deep on so many levels that I can't even come close to being like incredible at it. So it's like one of those games that's like, it's really good because the mechanics are so good, but like it doesn't bring me back. Like I don't constantly feel like I have to keep coming to play it. And there's other people that just can't stay away from it because they love it so much. But honestly, I kind of feel that way about Radiant Silvergun too. And I know you won't like to hear that because a lot of people love that game. Love Radiant Silvergun. And it's because I can't play it the way I want to. So with Radiant Silvergun, I got good at it because I learned how to play it the way it wants you to play it, where you have to chain the colors and you have to level up your weapons and you have to play it a very, very specific way. Otherwise you become underpowered and it becomes impossible. And it's so incredibly long. So it's like once I figured out how to play it and I beat it, I didn't keep coming back to it because I felt like I had to play it a very specific way and then I forgot how to play it that way. So I had to kind of like come back to it. So I'm not good enough at it anymore. It's kind of like the mechanics are so good, but then like I can't keep coming out playing. For me, it's like, for me, shmups are like a visceral experience. So that's what attracts me to just get in there and fire. That's why I like Soldier Blade and a lot of these caravan games and something I could just jump into and play really fast. And it's almost like I want to be able to kind of get into that kind of like Zen flow state of playing the game and not think too much. Like I want to be reactive and not overly cerebral, I guess, to a point. And a lot of treasure games are like that, and I love them for it, but at the same time I hate them for it. It's like they are very cerebral games.
All right, Darria, wrap us up here.
So, beyond Shmups, what are your favorite PC engine games?
There's so many. Some of my favorite PC Engine games are on Shmups are actually a lot of them are TG16 games because I grew up with a TG16 originally, and then the PC Engine I started playing later once they became available like as imports, and I would start going to the import store and renting them and playing them. But those were mostly Shmups. So with TG16, because it does, or PC Engine, everybody will say Rondo of Blood because it's a great game, obviously. But I played all the originals. Like I loved playing Ninja Spirit. I loved playing Splatterhouse. It's just an easy, fun arcade game. I loved the original Legendary Axe. I thought it was a really good game. I had a great time playing that. Those games, like I can replay them anytime. I'm trying to think of what some other, non-shmup TG16s are because there are plenty of those. New Adventure Island on the TG16 was one of the best Adventure Islands. It was really well done. PC Engine, obviously, I enjoyed all the Ys games. Ys 3, the game wasn't great. I wasn't big on the side scrolling, but like 1 and 2 and 4 were excellent. Some of the RPGs were good. But those are the ones that come to mind more than anything was like Splatterhouse, Ninja Spirit, Legendary Axe. Legendary Axe 2 was even fun. Love the music in that game. Bonk to a point. I didn't get into the Bonk games as some other people did. It was a little bit slower for me in that sense. I was more into Mario than I was into Bonk. But there were other good, faster, like arcade style platformers on the TurboGrafx that I liked more.
Very cool.
Awesome. Well, this has been so much fun. I have really enjoyed this and learned a lot, and now I have to go play Eschatos right afterward. But
I found it on Steam. It's on sale right now.
Oh, is it?
It's cheap too.
Yeah.
I saw it on the PlayStation store. I like to play at my TV, but I'll look at the Steam version.
Yeah. Like if you watch that intro to like the beginning of the brief history of Cute video, it gives you a really good, quick, like 10-minute overview of the game, what it's like, how you play it. Like it's like a little primer, and it'll get you kind of like hyped up for it. But cool. I definitely can't hype the music in that game enough. It's just the game is cinematic in and of itself, and the music just like takes to another level. It's so good.
I'm very excited. I'm gonna watch the video and then I'm gonna try it out. It looks yes, I'm excited for it. It's
the very definition of like a pick up and play visceral, like super fun experience. It's great. Just
nice.
All right, Jack, what would you like to say before we head off into the sunset?
Hey, before we get going, I just want to take a second and say again, my favorite time of year. It's March Madness, so I'm gonna be in basketball heaven for the next 3 weeks. Regardless of how my team does, I'm just excited to watch basketball from like 11 a.m. to midnight every day for the next 3 weeks. I'm in my happy place right now.
Nice. I'm glad when Jack is happy. That's great. And Logan, what would you like to say before we head off into the sunset?
Couple things. First, if you missed the show last week, I shared a trailer for my sci-fi short film.
Yes.
You can find it in the BreakmanX Discord and the self-promotion channel. And then I guess I'll also shout out a Minecraft mod I've been playing a lot this week, Fire and Ice. It's a pretty fun mod, adds lots of dragons to the game. Pretty great work by that development team. So if you play Minecraft and like mods, check it out.
Awesome.
Nice.
Very cool. And Darria.
I don't really have too much today. I'm just about finished with the game I'm playing and gonna move to Alan Wake after that. So I know I keep saying that, but I will. That's what I'm going to do.
We shall see. Won't we? No. Believe you. It'll be fun to see when you finally play that what you think.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. And Shmup Junkie, again, thank you so much for being here tonight. It's been so much fun. I think everybody out there has really enjoyed it too. Is there anything you'd like to say to the audience before you head back to the Schmups?
Oh gosh, well, I'm definitely excited to be working on the Saturn video. I'm looking forward to that coming out. I think everybody will love it. If you haven't checked out the Toa Plan documentary, like I said, it's going to be awesome. Definitely at least look it up online, check out the Kickstarter. It's going to be worth the time I put into it. And what probably many don't know is, like I said, I've got a video that I'm posting this Sunday. It's actually by Johnny Graphics. Not familiar with him on his YouTube. He put together a video called Underrated TG16 Schmups, his top 5. So it's a TurboGrafx video. He did a phenomenal job with it. So when I went on break with my channel, I made the offer. I said, look, I want to showcase other great shmup content creators. So if you're putting together like high quality shmup content and it's a really good video and it's appropriate for the audience, I'll showcase it on the channel. I haven't gotten too many takers. I've got some. But he put together a really good one. So in the meantime, while I'm finishing and working on the Saturn video, there is a really cool TG16 Schmups video that will get posted on my channel this Sunday for anyone who wants to check it out.
Awesome.
Nice.
Well, I love Johnny Graphics has some cool stuff. I like his channel too.
Yeah.
So I'll be looking forward to seeing that. All right. Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for watching this week, and we will see you same time next week on the game show.